Have you ever ended a relationship? And on the one hand, you were happy, you were joyful, you were excited, and you found your peace. But at the same time, you were sad, you were grieving, and you were hurt. Like, how does that happen? To where on the one hand, everything can appear to be okay, but then on the other hand, everything it doesn't seem to be okay. Like, help that make sense. Let's go ahead and talk about that.
Oh, I'm just here to check on you. Are you okay? Describe it in words, you know what to say.
When a person goes through a relationship that, on the one hand, they want it to work out, but then because things did not go as expected or as hoped for, and when a person emotionally disconnects from the relationship and the bond or the foundation, the strength of the relationship has been severed, what happens is, although a person can now be happy and joyful about their new chapter in their life, they moved on. They have exited the relationship. They're no longer with that person. And from this perspective, they're happy because they're no longer being controlled, perhaps manipulated, taken advantage of, or being abused in some way. So who would not be happy? Who would not be excited? Who would not be joyful about being able to move on and not have to deal with that anymore? Of course, a person would be joyful. Of course, a person would be excited. But why would they be grieving at the same time? Why would they be sad? Because I want you to think about it. Imagine a person was in the relationship, let's say for a year, maybe 2 years, and think about all the emotional investment that they made during that relationship, let alone the financial investment, all the time and all the energy. But think about the emotional investment, all the love, all the care, all the time being hopeful that that relationship at one time would have worked out. I mean, that's why they got into the relationship. Because when we form a bond with someone, we become hopeful, not just about the relationship, but also about what that relationship can bring for the future. And then when that relationship comes to an end, even though the bond has been weakened, even though the bond has been broken, and even though the relationship has come to an end, that emotional investment, the releasing of all of that, being able to breathe, being able to find yourself again, being able to believe in yourself again, being able to trust yourself or to be able to trust somebody else, that needs to catch up with the fact that you have physically or emotionally or both exited the relationship. The emotional investment made, that hasn't caught up yet. And this is why a person can be happy on the one hand and also be grieving at the exact same time. It's very delicate. It's a very sensitive time to move from a serious relationship, one that you really believed in, one that you really hoped for, and it's no longer a part of your life. You know, when I was married in my for the first time, it took me about 4 years, about 4.5 years to decompress, to get over the loss of what I had hoped would be like my future. I had seriously imagined a long future with this person. In fact, for the rest of my life. And I think about everything that I did, everything that I had put into that relationship, everything I had put into her, all my hopes, all my dreams at that time. And when that came to an end, and when I finally got clarity as to what happened in the relationship, what she did, the damage that she caused, oh yeah, I was very excited. I was very happy to have moved on because I'm happily married now. And I'm certainly looking forward to a beautiful future with my current wife. And we have a beautiful family. Everything's fantastic. And I know that this relationship is moving forward as hoped for. But the previous one, as I'm talking about it and how it affected me, and I'm sure that many of you can think about when you were emotionally connected to someone and you loved that person. You hoped and believed that you and that person would have some type of lasting future together. Not just buy a house, not just have kids, but to live with that person for the rest of your life. I know some of you out there listening, yeah, you hoped for that. And now that that's over, you look back and you think, oh my goodness, this person cheated on me, this person lied to me, this person wasn't honest, they manipulated me, they controlled me, they disrespected me, they never saw me, they never valued me. And it's for these reasons, yes, absolutely, it's for these types of reasons that a person is happy, joyful, excited, that they're able to move on. But at the same time, I want you to think about what happened, what was lost, what was sacrificed as a person was emotionally disconnecting from that relationship. They lost, some lose identity of who they really are. I've had many women tell me, I don't know who I am anymore. I lost myself. I betrayed myself. I can't find my happiness anymore. I've changed. I have no more self-confidence. My self-esteem is at a low point. And just because a relationship comes to an end and a person moves on, it takes time. It takes a significant amount of time, and it varies from person to person. For the person, for that emotional decompression, if you will, to get everything out, for it to catch up to where they are as far as their mind, so to speak, comes to the relationship. They may not be physically in the relationship anymore. Their mind may have moved on, but their nervous system, all the emotional investment, it hasn't caught up yet. This is why the emotional disconnection portion of the relationship or the layer of the relationship is so important. It's not just about going to movies, taking trips, spending money. It's a lot heavier than that. It's a lot deeper than that. Some people can move on pretty quickly, but some people it takes time, and each person is different. The circumstances of the breakup, the divorce, all the details, very different. And based on those circumstances, based on those variety of factors, that dictates how quickly one can move from emotional disconnection to move on with their life versus someone who does go through that same process and they have a more difficult time, a lengthier time to be able to move on to where they're not only happy, but they're no longer grieving of the relationship. You cannot downplay this. You cannot overlook this. You cannot pretend that this is not important for some people. For many people, it is very important. Again, for their emotional investment, to be able to decompress, to be able to breathe, just to be able to feel good and to feel safe again. Because many people, when they are taken advantage of, when they feel like they have no value, not only do they not, or did they not trust a person anymore, sometimes they don't even trust themselves anymore. And they have a hard time trusting someone else. And it takes a time for a person to get to that point. Once again, emphasizing the point that I always make, it is a bad idea. It is a really bad idea to move from one relationship to another if that emotional decompression has not happened. And a lot of women, I'm focused on women in this video. This happens to men as well, so I'm not saying that this does not happen to men. But a lot of women lose a version of themselves. They need to be able to trust again, and they need to be able to decompress, to be able to exhale, to be able to get it all out. Get it all out. Let the emotional investment that you made, all the hurt, all the pain, all the mistreatment, let your body decompress that. Doesn't mean you're not going to think about it. Doesn't mean that at all. Because even if you move on, you're still likely going to think about what you went through. But the reason why people feel they grieve and why they hurt is because they haven't decompressed out fully. You ever just think about a balloon that is blown up with a bunch of hot air. It takes time to let all the air out. And It's the same for someone who goes through emotional disconnection. They've been filled up, so to speak, with a lot of hot junk. Manipulation again, controlling, being abused, being talked down to, being made to feel this big, being neglected, being overlooked. That takes a toll, especially if it happens for a significant amount of time. And so when a person says, I'm done, I'm checking out, that air, that hot air from all of that has to decompress, has to be let go, has to be let loose. And it doesn't always come out in a very fast way. It takes time. And so this is why I definitely believe that if you're in a relationship and it comes to an end, oh yeah, you'll be happy, but at the same time, you're going to be grieving. Doesn't mean that you're broken necessarily. Doesn't mean that you can't move on. And somebody from the outside may look at you and go, why is this person still thinking about that person? Why are they still having a hard time? Why can't they just get over it? They don't know. They're only speaking to it from their perspective. They didn't live it with you. They didn't go through it with you, and they are not you. So they cannot understand the amount of decompression that you need to make. That's going to happen in your time frame, based on what you do, based on how strong you are, based on your values, and so many other things. But you have to let that decompression happen, because if you do not, if that hot air is still there and you don't let it all out, but you try to move on, it's going to show up. It's going to affect you some way. And again, my constant, in my respectful or humble opinion, I constantly tell ones, do not get into a relationship at all if you are still decompressing from your previous relationship. Some people call it rebounding or moving too fast. It has a number of different names to it. I call it decompressing. You have to get everything out. You have to. Now, you went through a lot. You emotionally disconnected from the relationship. You physically left. You've mentally left, but your body hasn't caught up yet. It will at some point, and when it does, then and only then should you move on. But prior to that, just my recommendation, I would strongly suggest that you don't. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I love talking about relationships, marriages, serious relationships, and how emotional connection and disconnection, how it works, how it affects individuals, and what you can do, what you should not do during these phases of emotional disconnection, because you may think you're doing good, you may think you're doing right by yourself, but you could actually be hurting yourself. And you could actually be hurting the relationship as well as the person that you're with if you do not know what to do at a certain stage or a certain phase of emotional disconnection. Be sure to subscribe to my channel.
Come to share your story. Tell it